Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie. And yeah, it was a frustrating game to say the least. There's been a lot of polarizing opinions on this loss and definitely on the performance itself. So I'm very keen to jump in, dissect it all, basically to answer the question, was this an unacceptable loss? As Vossi himself kind of labeled it in the performance. But Lockie first, how are you, and how did you react to the 13-point defeat at the hands of Geelong?
I'm doing fantastically. Thank you, mate. It's great to be talking about this as we do each week. Definitely a roller coaster of emotions for me, this one. I wasn't feeling as harsh as Vossi. I'll start by saying that.
Yeah, no, it was very interesting. I was probably very similar. It's a tough one. I think going into these kind of games, Geelong's undefeated. We've just beaten GWS, and we had that big conversation last week around, was that our first big win that now kind of puts the marker down, says that we are that contender as far as the premiership is concerned. And then you get a battle against Geelong, win or lose. How much does that change your perspective? Very keen to get into all of that because I don't think it's
Love it.
changed too much of how I feel about things. But let's jump
Nope.
straight into Navy noise. The first place we always start talking about the biggest stories that came out of the game itself. And the first topic that I want to touch on is around decision-making, execution, wastefulness. Lockie, it was probably the key one out of this game. Our inability to put our dominance on the scoreboard. We won basically all the key metrics, had more of the ball in our front half. So what went wrong? Was it as simple as lack of composure inside 50, or did you find that it was something else?
Yeah, it's a great place to start. I mean, all those buzzwords that you threw out there, I feel like generally, if you say, our execution was poor, our decision making was poor, that means that you didn't win the game. So it's important that those things are done well. I think for me, it was very clear the difference between us and Geelong on the day. Obviously, the inside 50 count was so heavily in our favour, which on the surface could lead you to say that it was unacceptable that things go down that way. But the way that they went inside 50 in this game compared to us, and the way that they got their shots on goal was just such a stark difference. So completely different, the two sides. So there's lots of ways that you can read into that defensively for us and offensively. I'm not sure which one you put more light on, but there's always those individual moments where it's like we didn't take those chances. And I try not to hone in those too much because, individual things happen and there's brilliant moments like we saw at the end and then bad lapses. So where do you sit with that?
Yeah, it's tough to know what was worse. And the next topic we're going to dive into is all about that transition defense and team defense
Sure.
as a whole. I think that was another one of those key points, and trying to find out which one impacted us more. I'm going to veer on the side of that the wastefulness in front of goals did, because as much as I guess if you tighten up and you go down that argument in defense, make it a lot better for yourselves because we didn't concede a lot of inside 50s. Vossi alluded that to in his presser as well, that if you just look at those stats, you would have assumed that we had a really good game, limited the amount of possessions that Geelong had in key areas. However, on the scoreboard, it doesn't look that way. But in saying that, if you look at what our game style did and what we were able to do, we gave ourselves the platform to win this game. But we just
I
didn't put it
agree.
on the scoreboard. That dominance, particularly in that first quarter, I thought it's incredible. 11 more contested possessions, 22 more uncontested possessions, which is kind of not necessarily like us. We had 6 more inside 50s that, we ended up having 21 more for that game as well. So we got the ball in enough. It was just clearly that the options that we were and chances we were creating just weren't clean. We weren't getting great looks. They were low percentage. Marks out, on the 50, on the
Yeah,
boundary. And then some of the shots that we were having, we just weren't nailing them. And when you do that and have that dominance early and then concede so easily down the other end, it's deflating. And
yep.
yeah, so I think I'm going to err on the side of the wastefulness probably hurt us more because even as bad as the defense was, we gave ourselves so many opportunities to still win that game.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic because I agree with everything you're saying, and then I know we'll discuss it, but the devil's advocate in me says, and Vossi said it in the presser, a team scoring 118 points on Carlton, like that's not who we are. That's not a good defensive performance from us, and you're rarely going to win a game in 2024 if your opponents are putting that score on the board. But I definitely agree with you. It's Geelong are undefeated for a reason. I think they planned for us accordingly in this way. This is the way that they play. They forced us to do these shallow inside 50s, which isn't a new thing for us either. How many goals did we kick where it was like, oh, that was easy?
Yeah.
It seemed like every goal they kicked was like, oh, well, that was easy. So it was just such a complete difference in offense.
No, 100%. And it was, I'm keen to get your thoughts on do you think we still kind of deserve to win this, and just that reflecting on how much you take negatively out of this loss, and how much your opinion on everything Carlton has kind of changed? Because for me, and I'll kind of answer it first, which is maybe not the best way to do a lovely back and forth, but for me, it was one of those weird games where we deserved to win, but equally deserved to lose, because I thought we did a lot more, particularly around the trenches, the inside 50s, generating more looks. The issue was just that decision-making, and I guess Geelong are going to set up so well defensively. We knew that coming into this game, and they did well. How many times we just kicked to a 3-on-1? We bombed it to just an intercept. We weren't smart, and this has kind of been an issue for as long as I can remember. Felt like occasionally we've taken a step forward in the game against GWS, particularly in that second half. You really feel as if, okay, we started to shift. We're using the ball better. Maybe we are evolving and maturing. And it's just that frustrating piece where Geelong deserved to probably win it because of how clinical they were, and credit goes to them. But equally, we put ourselves in those positions. So I'm probably not as flat as maybe some others are, but I'm definitely disappointed because it's a game that we probably should have won.
Yeah, I think we're pretty aligned. Obviously, very disappointing. I wouldn't say that we deserve to win. I don't know how I would kind of make my argument for that. Like everything happens for a reason. The score is that way for a reason. Yeah. And there's all 23 players and our coaches and everything contributed to it being that way. And I know we talk about the bigger picture things as we like to here, because we don't like to be so bound to just the performance that we saw. Very little changed for me with this. I still think we're a contender. And well, actually, you know what? I'm gonna change that a little bit.
Go spicy for me.
I respect Geelong a little more than I did before this game.
Okay, yeah, that was interesting, because in our sort of build-up, you did allude to and say that they weren't one of your kind of main contenders here right now. So that's something that's quite, I guess, interesting when you look at this. And it's probably one of those positives for me if I am looking at this performance in a way, because they're playing some really good football. They're kind of at their 100% at the moment. We were within striking distance, but we're so clearly, we have avenues to improve on, whether it's personnel, whether it's just how we performed in that game. And so I like that you kind of went back at what I said in the deserve to win, because I think I've got a better way to say it. Maybe we didn't deserve to win. That probably isn't the best word, but I'm disappointed because we gave ourselves the opportunities. We put ourselves in those positions to win, didn't take 100%. Them. So in the end, you don't deserve it. And I guess that other real deflating part from this game, that it was just that we kept putting ourselves within this striking distance. We got within a nice margin. We got a bit more dominance on it, particularly in that kind of last quarter. We come out of the gates, have those opportunities, don't take them. And it was almost every single time we didn't do it, they would completely go the other way. Quickly, we'd concede a really easy goal. It was super deflating, which transitions perfectly into the next topic of our problems defending in transition. Now, this has been something, Lockie, that we've kind of been poor on team defense for a fair few games this season. I think you look at potentially recent times, Adelaide, we were very poor. GWS, that first half, horrific. Now against Geelong, is this a bit of a trend and a wider issue, trying to reflect on not just a small sample size of one game, but trying to bring in a few others? Or, is it just simply the lack of personnel that we have available? Really keen to get your thoughts on where you see our defense right now.
Yeah, I'm definitely keen to chat about this one. Personnel is always going to be part of it, but I don't want to get bogged down in that because, like you speak about, like we need to have a system that allows us when we get to the point end of the season that we're not relying on personnel, and we need to have that depth. It's a really challenging thing, and it's all encompassing. Like you can talk about, like I feel like people point at different things when they talk about this defense. Like there's people that are pointing at Pitt, for example, and saying, because now we're slow because we've got Pitt, and that leads into this and leads. Everyone's got their perspectives on it, and I really think that there's tweaking. That it's not an overhaul thing for me. Like I think, even though it's clearly a weakness right now, I don't think it's something that needs to shift super dramatically to be improved. As I watched the little parts of the game back, like preparing for this, one of the ones that stood out to me a lot was straight after halftime, where there's about 45 seconds from the centre bounce where we go forward a couple of times, bit of back and forth, and it ends with Lewis. I think it was Lewis taking an inset mark at centre half back. And it's like, beautiful. Now we are going to move the ball forward. Hands it off to Williams. Great, we're going to attack. Williams bites off a 20-metre pass that he misses. Straight back the other way. Boyd's man is Myers, and he is 30 metres clear to get that goal. And then I went back a couple of times and watched what Boyd did. Young takes that mark. Boyd spreads to start attacking. The handball goes to Williams, and now Boyd's completely out of position. So is that something that needs to change? Like, does he need to be less attacking in that sense? Or do we want to be going all in on that? Like, it seems like really small tweak things that if Boyd didn't do that in that instance and was more accountable for Myers, then that goal wouldn't have happened. So where do you see that?
No, look, I love everything you've just raised there. That was great. Like, firstly, I love the Pitto bringing up and that discussion, because I think it's such a weird thing that we tend to do just as fans, and even the media, everyone kind of does it. You change one small thing. I'm guilty of it myself. And then all of a sudden you start to go, well, that's the main cause. It's one person's
we want to draw
fault,
that.
but clearly it's not. And I think to say and to put this all down on an individual right now, I'm just going to highlight big Brad Pitt in that, because that's kind of the big difference that's helped us positively, seemingly quite a lot. No one's talking about Walsh as far as clearances all of a sudden start to change. It's all big Brad, which is great for that. But on the flip side, it's clearly not just all going to be on that one person. It's definitely a team thing. And it's an interesting point that you raise as far as, are we too attacking and are we committing too much to attack when we are rebounding? Because I did notice when we were going forward, when we were having this dominance, clearly how easy it was for Geelong as soon as they won the turnover to go past us the other way. That, are we trying to be too attacking? Are we not prepared as much and organized because we're trying too much forward? It's something I want to kind of maybe keep an eye on, particularly in this Collingwood game that we've got coming up, because we know that they are such an attacking side. They love to play that fast turnover brand of football. They're going to carve you up if you do that. I don't necessarily have the answer, but I'm absolutely agreeing with you in the sense that I believe that this is a small refinement rather than a massive overhaul where we have to change everything we're doing. And I kind of go back to last year, where obviously I don't think it's as bad, where that first half of the season, so much was going wrong, and then finally we were able to overcome those deficiencies and figure it out. I like that we've still got areas to work on, but we feel so much closer to figuring them out. It's just almost getting this balance. We had the turnover game working. We had team defense working last year. Now we got the clearances back and the turnovers slightly dropped and the team defense has dropped. Even in saying all this, you throw McGovern into this team, you throw Sard, you maybe even throw a Marchbank for balance point of view. As even someone maybe come in instead of Gov, all of a sudden I think your team defense changes drastically on your organization behind the ball when you do lose turnover is completely fixed with just those guys. However, you don't have them right now. So you've just got to figure out
Yep.
a way. How do you kind of see the personnel side of things? I don't like blaming injuries, but do you believe that if you brought in a few of those guys right now, that the percentage increase would be monumental?
It's an interesting question. If I'm being completely honest, I think it would be. That's my hunch. I don't know if I can back that up, but I feel like this would have been a very different story this whole game, honestly, with those guys. I think when we talk about the forward line, or at least when I do, like there's so much about the synergy between those players, and we want to afford them the time to understand how to work each other and where to lead and who's going to block for who. And, it's so much about having time together as those 6 or 7 forwards. And I feel like arguably it's even more important for the back line. Like Cowan is a complete kid, like still learning AFL footy at this level and how to all work together. And so this group is still trying to work out how to defend as a group and who's going to do what. And with that example that I said, like, I don't know, it felt to me a bit like Williams wasn't being super attacking in this game. Like, to me, I felt like he was doing more of a kind of defensive role and the others were being more attacking. And so in this instance, Williams said, no, I'm going to be attacking. And we weren't ready for that. So that to me is just an example of, I don't know. Like, I don't know where you want to point to on that, but it just seemed like a lot of examples of that where just small little improvements and it just wouldn't have been a Geelong goal. Add them all up and suddenly we've won.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to just focus on who's not out there and blame that on things. And I hope people aren't thinking that that's necessarily what I'm saying, but I think there clearly is a drop-off when you've got a guy like, and we love him and he's performing well, but a guy like Boyd who's still really inexperienced, Cowan obviously, Lewis Young hasn't played a ridiculous amount of football, and compared to, you bring in Sard, Marchbank, Gov, those kind of players that have played more footy, you feel more assured, and they have that leadership to not only know what they're doing and playing with the guys out there, but also in being able to tell others and position others on the field. I think that goes a massive way. And what'll be interesting is to know, and I'd love to get so much more footage on this actual game and different angles to know that some of the turnovers and how Geelong were able to go through us, how much of that was where we turned the ball over and how we turned the ball over, rather than just a systematic how we were setting up. Because the tackle pressure was there all day. It felt like the work rate was there. Was there a big component that we were just turning the ball over in the worst possible spot, where there's a few times we kick straight to a 3-on-1, and not only do Geelong have kind of time because they've got players and a bit of protection immediately where that ball is, but they've got 2 or 3 options to burst out from. How much does that hurt you and not give you that time if they're able to get 1 or 2 kicks or a string of handballs and gain 30 meters in a split second? Is it those things that are causing a bit of concern as well?
For sure. It's a challenging pick your poison going forward. If it's not one-on-ones, like straight out of a centre clearance, do we want them to be going deep to the big guys, probably outnumbered, or shallower where it is more dangerous if we turn it over? Like, it's not a great scenario to be in, which is why we look so much better when it's one-on-ones in our forward half. We get the ball in there quickly, and and Charlie and Harry can do their things one-on-one, and that's when I see that we're at our best. So, but yeah, the personnel thing, it's just always important to bring up. Like, Lewis Young is our 5th best tall defender on our list, would you say? Or key position defender. So it's it makes a big difference if your best 3 are out there.
No, I definitely agree. And just some maybe concerning things to bring up, but I'm keen to just get your thoughts straight on them, because a few stats that I sort of found out and have come across this week was that, it's the last 3 games we've conceded at least 15 goals in each of those games. So clearly things aren't right. The blend in whether it's the personnel, team defense, whatever it is. I like that Vossi really, when he does talk about this, he's saying it's everyone. It's not just 1 or 2 individuals. Every single person can make this better. And we saw the back end of last year, just how when this team combines and everyone not necessarily buys in, but when we move as a unit and there's this synergy, just how well we defend and we make it really hard for teams to score. Just hasn't been the case for whatever reason this year. And these two are probably the most maybe concerning when you put them together. One's a positive, one's a negative. It's a real double-edged sword. Right now, Lockie, we are a really high-scoring team. There's only two teams that have actually scored more points than us in 2024. They're Sydney and GWS. Going the other way, how many teams do you think have conceded more points than us this year?
Wow, I'm not expecting this stat.
It is 4 teams have conceded more points than us this year.
Very
West Coast, Richmond, Hawthorn, and North. The bottom 4 teams this year are the only ones that have conceded more than us right now. So clearly we're leaky and we can't be having to play these shootouts every single week. We're clearly good going forward, but I don't know. Maybe that goes to your point where if we literally tighten things up slightly, it's that tiny adjustment, and all of a sudden we are back to being best team in the competition.
It's why I'm not too worried about what we're seeing at the moment. It's a long season to come. We're going to get players back, and we're going to be able to tweak these things.
Well, look, that kind of leads perfectly into my next question. You've somewhat answered it, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I want you to delve into really the why around this and what you specifically got out of the Geelong game. I'm also keen to get everyone's thoughts. If you're watching this right now on YouTube, give me your thoughts on everything we've covered so far, and particularly this question. And if you're listening in podcast form, head over to our socials at Navy Blue Corner and let us know, because this is a bit of a, what did we learn from the game, the loss, the performance? I want to start here because last week we spoke heavily on about finally making that statement, putting our hat in the ring as a true contender. And I wanted to delve deeper into that. And I kind of want to save the game style discussion for our Collingwood build-up show. So trying to go too much into that. But did you take anything from this game that swayed you either way in the Carlton true contender discussion and debate? Like, did we go a little bit too early off one win last week?
Interesting question. I thought about this as kind of our media meltdown thing because I saw some clips going around of, Geelong and the Giants are the only real contenders now. Like, just, I mean, we don't even need to talk about those things because it's just so reactive and obviously clickbaity. Like, I've felt like Carlton are a premiership chance, like I said last week, ever since the preliminary final was over last year. So, like I mentioned before, this did put a bit more respect on Geelong for me. I don't know, I felt like I know it's a bit of the narrative, but I genuinely felt like they hadn't had beaten any really, really tough opposition yet before us. And just looking at the players out there, like they're aging, so many aging guys, as well as young guys that haven't proven themselves yet. But after seeing how they performed against us, it's like, yeah, they are a really good team. And yeah, we can't win every week. I'm not expecting us to win every game. We said that we want to win 2 of our next 3. We've lost this one, and now all we got to do is win these next 2, and I'm happy.
100%. And it's like we spoke about it after the Adelaide loss. It's clearly, what do you learn from it? And we were able to take certain things and apply those to the GWS game. I'm hopeful that we do the exact same thing, bounce back against Collingwood. And we've spoken about it multiple times and brought it up that we were so close in this game, even though we did lose it. And there's clearly a lot we need to go and work on. But I go back to that, we're the top 3 scoring team in the competition right now. And that's such a positive. Last year, we couldn't score. We couldn't defend. We couldn't do either. Now we're scoring. We're just struggling to defend a little bit. And that can clearly change. And I am similar to you. I'm still well and truly believing I didn't feel like I overreacted to the GWS win. I'm definitely not overreacting to a loss this week. No. Geelong are clearly so well drilled, and credit to them. They were so efficient. We didn't allow them a lot of the ball in good positions, but when they got it there, they were clinical. They were effective. They played smarter footy compared. They were just completely experienced. And and took the chocolates in that case. But I think what excites me is that's kind of Geelong's 100%. I don't know if this is controversial. I don't know if this is the hot take, and maybe it'll come back to haunt me, whatever. But apart from a Tom Stewart in that side, I don't know how much they can really improve from what we're seeing right now. Like, what's Geelong's next level? Because they're playing amazing footy. All credit to them. But right now, when I'm comparing us and 13-point difference, I know that we've got not only personnel that come into this to improve it. Bring Chera, who's our number 3 best defender. Bring in Gov, bring in Sard, bring in a Fogarty, a Jack Martin into our forward line. Hell, we don't have Doc and Silvani all year. Like, there's hate rattling on the personnel that's not there, and I don't want to discredit them. But, if we improve by 5% in that game just from the guys we had out there, I think we win. So, right now, knowing that we play Geelong shortly, it really, there's not a lot of games until we weirdly play them again because the fixturing is just absolutely ridiculous. But next time, can Geelong be as perfect as they were and for the rest of the year? That remains to be seen. And I've upped us, I've talked about us, and clearly we need to prove it ourselves. Can we show that we can go to those levels, not only once, but for a sustained period of time? But from what I've seen, I'm from a loss and then maybe they're not most polished performance, I'm almost more confident now that we can do it, because even in that Adelaide game like this, our 2 losses, we've been poor and we've still given ourselves so many opportunities to win those games. So, I'm very optimistic, as always.
100%. It's going to be so fascinating to see what we do tweak next time we go against them and when we're breaking down that match. And is it the same story or is it something completely different?
Absolutely. So are there any other key points that you want to bring up, or other lessons that you feel you learned from this game, whether it was an individual player? I'm just keen to see where you take this, Lockie.
Yeah, well, I forgive me if it's too game planning and you want to talk about that more with the Pies, but I think we talked a lot about Pitt and the Rucks last week. Again, it was a small sample size then. It's still a small sample size, but it's a little bit bigger. I really think it's important that we continue to learn and understand the, pardon the pun, strengths and weaknesses of having Pitt in the side. But I think we have to find a way to fix those weaknesses because the positives are just too good. I feel like how he's playing as an individual and the way that he's elevating the mids, like Patrick Cripps is playing the best football of his career right now. And I think Pitt is a part of that. Walshy as well, obviously, has come back unbelievably. You said Chera's going to come back into this midfield. Like, I feel like Pitt is just elevating everyone around him. And I liked what it looked like with TDK and Harry before Pitt came in. But I'm just loving this even more, what he's bringing to the team.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I find it funny. I was watching the game with an opposition supporter, goes for Essendon. So I wasn't even really that into the game at all. But it was funny. I sort of started joking off at the start of the game, being like, oh, mate, watch out for big Brad Pitt. He monstered last week. And anytime he got the ball, I was sort of getting a bit too excited, almost as a bit. But every time he did it, it stopped becoming a joke because he genuinely was playing such unreal football. And what I was impressed with of him this week was it was just the simple little things. And that's all we're kind of asking, where he's using his body around the contest. And when he is winning the football, it's just a simple handball and he's absolutely nailing the runners either side. He's not trying to take on the big kicks or do things that we know he can't. He seems to know his limitations and he's going to his strengths. And I agree. I think we need to be finding ways to minimize the weaknesses of the 2 rucks at the moment because the positives are outweighing the negatives. And even though De Koning doesn't have his best performance, he has 3 chances to score. They weren't maybe the best opportunities inside 50, but I think that was just kind of us throughout the whole game. But, 1 or 2 of those change and all of a sudden we're saying, wow, the 2 rucks were so important for us again this week. I just absolutely love what I'm seeing from Big Brad. Big Brad, thank you.
Yeah, and you nailed it. Like, we said that we weren't going to get the 2 doing what they did last week every week. And obviously we didn't this week, but it was still a plus for me of what we got from them, having the three tools forward most of the time, pit rucking 2/3 of the time. Like, I think this is really something to persist with and to keep tweaking around the edges.
No, very excited to see how that progresses in the coming weeks. And I think something that I was maybe didn't necessarily learn, but it's something that's nice to see it happen, even if it does take place in a loss, is that start of that last quarter, I was really thinking, gee, if we don't take our chances early, it's been one of those games where we've worked so hard for any opportunity. As soon as we don't take them, Geelong goes down, gets a goal quick. That's really deflating. Gee, if we don't kick the first couple of goals here and Geelong pile them on, I'm worried we'll really drop off and it could get pretty ugly. And it sort of started heading that way. So the spirited comeback, the Blake Acres almost just tore the house down again. This man is the most clutch player out there. He gets the crowd so up and about. It was good to see. So I think the sort of fight back was impressive for me when we just don't seem to be that team that quits. Is that something that you noticed coming out of that game, even if it wasn't enough to win it for us?
I was trying to reflect and think if there was a time this season that I was more amped and like excited than I was during that little stretch. Like, yeah, like I feel like that was part of the roller coaster of emotion for me and part of not feeling so disappointed about this game because, you know, Cripps put that goal through and he's telling the boys like, it's not over. And I was believing him. I was like, why? Like, whatever it was, like we still need 5 goals in 6 minutes or whatever it was, but it just didn't feel impossible for us. It's just so nice to have that faith in our team now. And can you imagine if they repaid us with getting over the line? It would be one of the greatest comebacks by any team of all time. It would have been amazing.
Exactly, but I think it sort of shows you, and I love that, you know, Cripps as well, he kicks the goal and he's trying to eye the bloke saying, come on, we're not out of this, let's lift. And those are the aspects that you love in a team, that even if you aren't nailing everything, you're not the most polished version of yourself, you're not having the most perfect game, there's that willingness to just continue and that you're never out of this until the final siren goes. And the disappointing aspect of that is we're putting ourselves in a position where we had to kick, 4 in a row to get ourselves to that bid, and then we're still a few goals down. That's the disappointment. But no, I am impressed that there's still that aspect of our game. Anything else that you learned from this at all, Lockie?
Anything else that I learned? Nothing else is coming to mind. I think, not feeling overly negative. I thought there was some good individuals that we haven't mentioned as well. And, it's something that we're going to bounce back from, I think.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll go to our kind of last bit in this Navy noise, and it's what we kind of started this episode on. It's what the title is all about, because Vossi was hot in his press conference after the game. Potentially the first time I've seen Vossi as stern and animated, maybe fiery, labeling this performance unacceptable. The full quote was, I don't want us to settle, and that it was a good effort or it was close. It was unacceptable and we've got to be better. Lockie, what do you make of this? Seeing, we haven't seen this side of Vossi. Do you think that his comments were just?
It's a very interesting thing, isn't it? Because, you can speculate on what came in to make him act in that way in the press conference. Like, he obviously was extremely salty the whole way through. Like, someone mentioned, I can't remember who it was, but someone mentioned like an individual performance, and he's like, I'm not in the mood to talk about individuals. Like, that's not what I'm feeling like right now. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think? What do you think he was specifically? Because he was talking about defense. Like, is there anything in particular that you think particularly irked him about it, to name it in that way?
Firstly, I loved it. I absolutely loved seeing that from Vossi.
Problem with it at all.
That is what I want, because I think it's us fans, we can kind of be as emotional as we want, or we can try to look at the positives, whatever. But when I hear Vossi kind of talk about our standards. And there was another quote I loved where he was talking about, we benchmark ourselves off our own efforts. This isn't about that this was against Geelong. Yeah. We have standards. We're not living up to them. I thought he was really talking about that team defense because he did specify that himself. And when I am trying to get inside the mind of Michael Voss, it's kind of alluding to just the easy opportunities we seem to be giving our opposition, and at the ease at which we're allowing teams to move through us. Happened in the Adelaide game, particularly late, kind of cost us, where they have the ball for a kick in, or it was out of bounds. Can't remember that, Matty, always where that ended up. I've kind of wiped that from my memory, but they kind of go coast to coast, get a stoppage goal, move through us way too easy. GWS cut us up in the first half last week. This week, every single time we turned the ball over, within 2 seconds, Geelong have got the ball inside 50. So I think it's really that he's getting frustrated at, knowing that last year, the team defense was such a strong component of us. We're built on pressure, strong at the contest, defense first. When we were in our bad patch last season, it was all he was talking about, saying, don't worry about scoring. The issue is defense. We all thought that was kind of a strange thing at that stage because we weren't conceding a lot of points. It was that we weren't putting them on the board. But clearly, judging off the success of last season, that defense is an issue. And I said that right now there's only about 4 teams that have conceded more points than us. I think that kind of tells you everything you need to know, that team defense is not where it needs to be. And we're giving teams easy looks. And when we're not generating them ourselves, I think that's definitely where the frustration would lie from me. Because if it's hard for us, we need to be making it as equally hard as the opposition. We can't be just allowing them those easy breaks.
Do you have a feel on where the frustration is specifically pointed? Like, is it about effort? Is it about not following instruction? Like, is it at the coach? Like, is it at the coaching staff and the game plan? Like, frustration at the plan that we went in with? Like, you know what I mean? Is there an element of it that you think is particularly frustrating to him, or just general?
It's really difficult to answer. I guess like not being in the 4 walls. So I love that, but I love that you're trying to bring that up, because I would. And again, this is just my kind of opinion. Keen to get everyone else's thoughts on this in the comments as well. But I would say it's a lot around the execution and what he is wanting. So that's probably defensive game style plan. You kind of alluded to and brought up a few instances of players maybe not being in the perfect spot when we are turning the ball over, and are we committing too much towards the attack? It seems as if it's not just down to one person, one thing. It's everyone, because to have such a massive breakdown when we are turning the ball over that allows teams to break out so easy, it must be a multiple amount of individuals that aren't sticking to the task that's asked of them. Because I don't think Vossi would have gone as hard if he believed that there was a plan that he's not only seen them do before, that they're clearly not adhering to. I don't think he would have gone as hard if he didn't have that belief in them. And that's
exactly
sorry, you go.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that's exactly what I was kind of alluding to. Like, that kind of frustration feels so much more of like a player focused thing than a game plan focused thing. Like, I think when we see him being very calm in press conferences, it's in a loss. It feels like it's a very balanced thing of execution and plan, whereas this one felt so much directed at like, the players didn't do what they were supposed to do, kind of vibe.
100%. It's like what I am asking, they're not doing, so I'm getting pissed off, because like I'll happily take responsibility if I'm getting out coached or the system seems to be getting beaten when it's working. And this was maybe a little bit of Vossi last season. I don't think he went as hard at the players, but when he was talking about things, he was backing in himself, and he wasn't maybe taking, I don't want to say accountability, because I feel like that's the wrong word, but he was backing himself up. He was saying that we're just not executing right now. The plan's right. It's not happening. And I like that this time. And while last year he probably took a bit of that brunt himself, I like that this was the first time he really put it on the players and was a bit nasty in the press conference And why I love that so much is because there's a clear trust in the playing group that they can handle that that's the right messaging for right now. He does this last year when we're playing really poorly and things aren't working. That's when you probably lose the playing group because they're not confident in themselves. This gives me the belief that he's confident that these boys have that belief in themselves that 100%. They can do this and that, they can just, if they just commit to it, if they just fix a couple of things, that's the standard. So I loved that we benchmark amongst ourselves and our own efforts, and we've just got to get better. I love all of that from Vossi. It's about time that we see a bit of that from him because, it's not acceptable to lose games of footy that you probably should beat. This time last year, we lose against the top team. We'll come out and win next week. Now it's like, nah, we need to win every single week because we're a premiership team now. You know, we're fighting for that final prize. You can't be losing any games, Lockie.
Spot on. Absolutely spot on.
Absolutely love it. So kind of want to tie in the next topic, the under the radar, with the votes as well. So feel free to either bring out a player that you want to touch on in their performance or go straight to your votes while talking about maybe a few guys that were a bit stiff to miss out.
Mate, our defense needs the synergy that you and I have because that's exactly the plan that I was going to go with. I will go straight into my votes and chuck some under the radars in there. I had to give 3 to Cripper. It just goes without saying. I'm not even going to elaborate on it. Big Brad, I'm giving him the 2 as well as the overachiever because it was a perfect setup for him to not back up a performance last week that we absolutely loved, and he continued to deliver, I thought. And like I said, elevate everyone around him. And there's 3 blokes that I wanted to give a 1 vote to. And I was hoping that throughout these 40 minutes, I'd get some clarity on them. And I don't really. So I'll go with the one that I had at the start, which was Wieders. I just think he was huge. Obviously, with his leadership in defence, played a really good game. We would have really struggled without him down there. And back to some really good form, I thought.
No, really like those votes. Very hard to disagree. And if you're watching this right now on YouTube, we want to hear your votes as well. So it's 3, 2, 1. 3 is obviously the clear and easy one. Best on ground. 2 is who sort of most overperformed for their role this week. And then the 1 vote goes to literally anyone you want for any reason. Drop them in the YouTube comments. And I'd love to hear the explanation as well. And if you're listening in podcast form, head over to the socials at Navy Blue Corner and let us know your votes. I'm very similar. Cripps is the 3. Absolute monster. Give this man a second brown, though. He's an absolute star. My 1 vote is Wiedering as well. Even though defense wasn't amazing all up, I thought he did his best in defense to try and sort things out. It's kind of frustrating that we didn't really have that maybe best matchup for a guy like a Jeremy Cameron. And I don't know. Does anyone in the AFL actually have a good matchup? Because he can beat you and he goes high up into the ground. If he stays in defense, he outmarks everyone. I hope next time we play him, we're able to corral him a little bit more. Maybe that's down to personnel, but Wieders I thought was great. And then my 2 votes could have been a lot of players. I've given it to Blake Acres, and maybe there's a little bit of recency bias on that one in the last quarter. It was probably going to big Elijah Hollins before Acres bobs up with those 2, but I don't know. For Acres, he doesn't tend to kick a lot of goals. So when he does that in those clutch moments to try and wheel us over the line, after a decent performance all day, I think I've got to reward that for just getting me super excited and getting sucked in again late to think maybe we are a sniff in this. Were there any other players that you maybe wanted to give a bit of a shout out in this performance at all? Or are those all the guys that you wanted to touch on this week?
Yeah, absolutely not. Our synergy is just showing again. Elijah, I was in my consideration for the 1. Like, just everything that we hoped that he would be as that mid-forward connector. I feel like he's so young into his Carlton career and he's already showing those signs, which was awesome. And Acres I was tossing up between as well. One of the things that swayed me was probably my most frustrating part of the game, which was that one in defence where we got the hold in the ball, takes the advantage, kicks it straight to Holmes. There was just so many elements of this where I was like, why was this the decision that we made? So that was the one part that I put off Blake. But his ending was just, like I said, I think it's the most excited I've been about Carlton this season, that little stretch.
Yeah, I wonder with that one, and maybe I'm giving him too much credit. Did he hear the whistle? Was he just simply playing with...
Maybe.
Because he already had the ball in his hands and started running kind of as the free kicks paid. So, I don't know. We didn't get many good free kicks paid for holding the ball, so he probably thought, hey, I'm not getting any of these decisions today. I don't think it's gone our way, but I do agree it was probably a bad decision to kick it wherever he did. I got a couple of little quick things I wanted to touch on. We don't go big on the umpires, but did you have any thoughts on the umpiring decision? Because that was another hot topic that people had opinions on this week, and maybe us not getting the rub of the green as much this game.
You're going to have stronger takes than me on this, so I'm excited to hear your reaction. But I'm getting really tired of the discourse, not just Carlton, just AFL wise, about the impact that umpires have. Like it's across lots of different things. It's on social media, it's those kind of things. Like I listen to I didn't expect to bring this up, but I listen to very little AFL content apart from just watching the games myself. But Dan Gorringe's podcast is one that I generally really like, and I like the way that he goes about things. But they have such a focus this season on how frustrated they are with the state of umpiring in the league. I'm just not really seeing it that way. I don't think it's something that should be so emphasized personally.
It's interesting. I think it's always going to be hotly debated. And look, I probably thought there were a lot of decisions comparing that I wish went our way, and I probably saw that should have gone our way. But I guess my more take on this is maybe not as hot as you expected, Lockie, but it's just you cannot put yourself in a position where you need those 50-50 free kicks to go your way, where your one bad free kick either getting called or not getting called your way, away from losing momentum or conceding a goal the other way. You can't put the game in the hands of luck for me. So I'm more disappointed that we played in a manner that meant that we needed those decisions to go our way. And when they didn't, they were causing more frustration rather than I'm annoyed at the decisions themselves, because we kick a few more goals. We're better inside 50. We're tighter on defense. We don't give a shit that half those decisions didn't go our way, that there's a 50-meter against Harry when he wasn't sure about the mark and Cripper was already standing there, that a deliberate out of bounds that was obvious wasn't paid. You're not talking about that because you're saying we did everything else right, but we didn't. So I don't think you can even get to that part of the conversation.
Well, so then am I right in saying that we have the same frustration, which would be overemphasis on umpires' impact on results?
I agree. Okay, I agree. I think you make it up to yourself. You make your own luck. Absolutely. But lastly, I want to ask you one question that I want your absolute definitive answer to. We've kind of talked about it the whole time. Everyone watching, drop it in the comments as well. Vossi said it was unacceptable performance. Lockie, for you, was it unacceptable?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's such a hard question. An unacceptable performance. Can I accept the performance is basically what that is asking. And I think, I don't know. I genuinely do not have a definitive answer to that. What do you say?
I think I'm going to fence it, but in the best way possible, where a politician sounds like I'm not, in the fact that I like that we're at this position where we've set standards where that isn't acceptable, because we need to win and we can't be having games where we're letting teams just run through us anytime they have the ball. Geelong felt comfortable to just be able to sit back, absorb, not worry that Carlton are dominating clearances. Don't care that you've got those inside 50s, because we know as soon as we've got it, we're confident in our ability to springboard, rebound, go coast to coast and score easily. So in that sense, I think it is unacceptable, because we've set these standards now that we need to win games of footy. We can't be dropping points that we think we should win. However, I think I can at least live with these things because as a fan, the standard that I'm seeing even in these losses are so much higher than in previous years. And if we improve by 5%, we're beating the undefeated team in the composition in the competition, and we're seen as the flag favorites right now. And who knows? You learn and take on those learnings against the Pies this week, and all of a sudden we're back in that number one podium position. So I think it is unacceptable in certain aspects, but I can cop it for 1 week, and let's strive to improve it in the next.
I'm analyzing that question, that word unacceptable now, because I guess it is the basis of your question. But for the position that we're in, I guess every loss is unacceptable, right? Yeah. We're not going to accept any loss. We think that we should be beating every team that we come up against. I can see North Melbourne accepting, a loss, like say they were in our position against Geelong, but that's where we're at. Like, I don't see any reason why we do a loss and we go, we'll take that.
Yeah, I think and maybe this is the dumbest way to say it, I want to lose in a fashion, if it does happen, where I can sit back and just go, wow, completely outplayed, outcoached. That opposition was so much better than us, rather than sit here this week and go, we could have and should have been better. Like, I saw enough there.
Interesting.
Right, I didn't feel like we were completely outplayed. I didn't feel dominated. I didn't think we were outcoached. I think we were our own worst enemy, and we lost that game more than Geelong beat us, not to completely discredit how efficient and effective they were.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
But that is going to wrap up this episode. Look, we are going to be back here every single week on our own YouTube channel with a match review. Tuesday nights, we don't have a set time. It's basically as soon as this is recorded, it'll be uploaded and out. So make sure you're following our socials at Navy Blue Corner, because the links will be dropped as soon as it is uploaded. And of course, if you're listening to this in podcast form, it's where you find it every week. Make sure you follow so you never miss out. You don't even have to go searching. It'll be there for you in your following folder every single week. So don't miss out our match review every single week. But in saying that, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be back, double the content every single week, still on Blue Abroad every single Wednesday night, 8 p.m, doing a match build-up. So this isn't your only content this week. We're going to be building up and previewing a massive game against Collingwood. Absolutely cannot wait to get stuck into that. Up the Buddy Baggers. See you guys next time.